Hey, good morning. Happy Thursday, friends. I am excited to have a live conversation this morning with someone that I respect so much. I'm going to give people a little bit of time to get on here, but I am going to have a conversation with Dr. Charles Mugisha, and he is the founder and president of Africa New Life. And this is in Rwanda. And one of the greatest joys of my life was in January, I was able to travel to Rwanda with my son, Caden. He actually turned 16 in Rwanda on a safari. And I'm just telling you, if that's not a happy 16th birthday, I don't know what is. But I was able to go to Rwanda and visit Africa New Life and see their ministry there, see their organization, see everything they're doing. My friend Natalie Green, who's a friend of mine here in Austin, works with them, and I have been wanting to see what they do forever, and I finally got the chance to go, and I was blown away by the organization. A couple of things that I loved about it that I want to tell you about before I bring on Charles on here. I'll just call him Charles because we're buddies. Before I bring him on, I want to tell you a couple things. Number one, the whole organization was started by Rwandans. And you guys, that's crucial when you're dealing with supporting and giving to organizations that are in other countries around the world. Maybe that's not the most crucial point. And listen, I'm not an expert, so whatever. But the most crucial is that it's run by Rwandans. It is all run by Rwandans on the ground. There are no Americans on the ground running anything, which means it's run by Rwandans for Rwandans. And that means a lot to me. And it should mean a lot to you if you're supporting an organization. So Africa New Life, they have food programs, they have school programs, they have all kinds of ways to help parents parent their children. And, they have been hit by COVID just like we have. And they have been handling it beautifully. And I'm going to talk to Charles about that, Pastor Charles about that in just a second. But I want to tell you this real quick before he comes on. I just want to give you my opinion. When I was in Rwanda, one of the things that stuck out to me the most was the hope that a country has, the hope that people have within their country who have been so harmed and hurt. I mean, their country, if you don't know the history, I'll let Charles tell us because I'll just butcher it, but they went through massive genocide in the 1990s. And again, I'll let him explain it because he actually lived through it and has experience with it. But that country and the people, they have hope, they have resilience, they have rebounded, and it's beautiful. So I'm going to bring on Pastor Charles because you don't want to hear from me about what's happening in Rwanda. You want to hear from Pastor Charles. So let me bring him on. This is always the confusing part for me is I've got to go find them. And please forgive me because you would think, oh, Jamie knows how to do this. But you know what? I don't really know how to do this. Here we go. I am going to find him right here and bring him on. And you're going to love him. You're going to love him so much. Oh, I turned my camera around. Oh my gosh. You guys, this is like so unprofessional. Here we go. There I am again. Oh, there I am. I hope you're here for the show, guys. Okay, I invited him. Let's see if he is going to be able to jump on with us. Okay, hold tight, everybody. Please stick around because you're going to love Pastor Charles. You're going to love him so much. Okay, I've invited him. He's going to jump on. He's in Rwanda right now, so it's nighttime. They're a little bit ahead of us, but I'm just going to ask him a couple of questions about what his country has been through. I want to talk about lamenting and hope. I think that's something that we all need right now. And then I want to find out how they're handling the COVID-19 virus in Rwanda and in their organization and with their families, because I know that they have been doing a lot to help families who are already in such a deficit and a need, and they're already a part of their communities, and so they're jumping in. Hi, Pastor
Hello.
Charles.
Hey, hello. Good to be with
Hi.
you.
Welcome. I'm doing well. How are you?
Hello, how are you? Thank you.
Everything is
I'm
going
doing well.
well
How are you,
here,
Jimmy?
and I'm so glad to have you on this Instagram chat. Can you hear me well?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, good, good,
Yes,
good.
I can hear you well. And how how are you doing? Are
A
you
little
still locked
bit.
down?
We're able to go out and do things, but we have to wear a face mask everywhere we go. In my city of Austin, it's now a mandate.
Yep, yep, yep. You know, we have to do the same thing here. Uh, you might get a ticket for not having
Yes,
a mask
yes,
on
that's
your
what I
mouth.
hear. Pastor Charles and everyone that's watching, there's a little bit of a delay, but I don't think it's going to cause any problems. And we'll just, after we talk, we'll just pause a little bit to let the delay catch back up. But I think it's going to be great. I want to ask you a couple of questions as people are joining and listening. And for a lot of people, they may not know a little bit of the history of Rwanda. And I was so honored to be able to visit you in January and hear your heart and your story about what you personally and your family and your country went through. But I would love to hear from you just a little bit about where was your family during the genocide? Because I believe that you guys were in Uganda, and then what brought you back to Rwanda after that?
You know, first of all, I want to say that we were in Rwanda before we went to Uganda. My family is from the southern part of Rwanda, which is called Gikongoro. And in that southern part of Rwanda, which borders with Burundi and a little bit of Congo, is where the first massacres and the genocide started in 1959. So in 1959 was the beginning of the scattering of my family. So we started scattering all the way to the 70s, from uncles to cousins to aunties. It's like a whole period of nearly 20 years was a period of scattering from our home area to, like, my father left the area of Rwanda. He went to Burundi on foot. He went to Tanzania, another neighboring country, on foot, ended up in Uganda. My mom went to Congo, lived in refugee camps for some time out there, and then she ended up in Uganda. So I was raised in Uganda because my family were refugees in Uganda, running away from the Rwandan genocide of the Tutsi people, which started in 1959, but really climaxed in 1994. So those are really, really many, many years of living as refugees, really from one place to another place. I cannot, man, I can remember growing from one village for a few years to another village for a few years, changing life, changing schools, changing neighborhood. We were just travelers from one place to another place, running
Yeah.
away for life and looking for life. Then in 1994, the Taliban news erupted that even those who had stayed home in Rwanda, they were experiencing a terrible genocide. In only around 90 days, nearly 1 million people were killed. At that time, I was around 26 years of age. I'd come to know Jesus Christ during my wandering days at age 17. So I had a faith in Jesus. And it seems all these things we had gone through struggling actually drew me to God, drew me to God as praying for protection. And I remember most of the times, if I can remember my prayers, they were much more about God's protection over my family, over my parents, over my sisters, over my family. So I had a relationship with God, which was so much linked in a cry to God for protection, because I'd seen a lot of death growing up around me, and the whole idea of protection and security was very crucial. So 94, the genocide comes to an end. 95, 94, my dad had been waiting for really many years, a little bit over nearly 30 years, wanting to come back to his home country. He never wanted to be a refugee. He never wanted to wander around. He wanted some stability. So later on, in his late 50s, he returned to his home country in Rwanda. 95, I followed my father and I came to Rwanda with my mother. My mother delayed to come because she was so hesitant. She was so afraid for her children that they would go through what she went through. So she really refused us from coming. She didn't want to come. But since I'm the oldest child in the home, the family, I had to press on to go out and see where dad is, see the country. And as soon as I arrived in this country, I can remember my heart was completely broken because I saw what I'd never seen before. Through all the wars and battles, this was not just a war, it was a genocide. And the dead bodies were still smelling everywhere. I mean, I can smell them again. Children were running everywhere, orphaned children with no parents. There were thousands and thousands of refugees coming back, possibly what some of you have seen in movies. I was seeing that live, and my heart was completely broken by what I saw. Completely broken by what I saw. And that was the beginning of my calling to come to Rwanda. And I felt God was calling me to not just come preach in Rwanda, but come here and live out my faith in Jesus Christ, which I had found a few years in past in Uganda. So I came to Rwanda to live out my faith in Jesus Christ by acting compassionately and loving people, and really through love, communicating the gospel and the love of our Lord Jesus Christ.
When you came back, you're coming back to find your dad, and it makes me giggle that your mom was like, I'm not going to go, but you're like, listen, I'm the oldest mama. I got to go find daddy, and I got to figure out what's going on and where he is. And so you get back to your home country of Rwanda, and it is devastating. Like you said, there are the evidence of the genocide is still heavily everywhere you look. And so you're seeing the most atrocious, awful things, and your heart is moved to do something. Can you tell me about how you got from your heart is moved to do something to starting and developing and having African New Life be that something?
You know, like you said, I mean, I still respect my mama for struggling for us to come. I think it's the heart of a mother. I don't want my kids to be killed. I think she thought our dad was reckless to go back. But then I also thank God for my father that he had the tenacity to go back in the middle of that blood. Because when I got there, my heart was broken. I was hurting for the death, but so much for the children who had stayed behind. Public schools were orphanages, like an entire public school in the community was an orphanage full of children who were trying to trace their families. Some of them never found their families, some of them did. And I remember the first thing I really did was to just come to Rwanda, and I became a frequent visitor to Rwanda. I was still living in Uganda. I had a home and a job in Uganda. So I became a frequent visitor. I became a weekend visitor. I would get on a bus and just come, live among other people, and continue to experience the pain the rest of the people were going through. See the children on the streets, look at the children in my neighborhood, and I did not have good answers. But one thing I thought like, I want to be with them. I want to live with them. And I want to touch them. I want to experience what they are experiencing at this moment. So finally, I remember I went back to Rwanda, to Uganda, where my wife at that time was. And I told my wife, we need to do something. We need to help these children in Rwanda. Both of us were Bible school students, and we didn't have much. So someone had given us about 200 pounds for our own use as Bible school students. So I remember asking my wife to give me the 200 pounds, and I took them to Rwanda, and we helped 9 children. Those days, we did not even use the word sponsor. We're just helping. So we helped 9 children with a strategy that we would send 9 children back to school, would provide a school uniform for them, and would provide books for them to go to school, and just to see them, at least see 9 of them thrive by going back to school, by having a school uniform, and really starting out of their life again, out of the genocide and the trauma of what they were going through. Just create something good, a good experience I felt for them was going to school and having a life every day where they could leave their home and go back to school. So after helping out 9 children, God really started moving. That was the whole idea of the 9 became a trigger, because a few months later, I met an evangelist from Portland, Oregon, who used to work for Luis Palau and was a professor at Mount Noma. And we became friends. I helped him to do evangelistic meetings. He invited me to Portland. I loved Portland when I got there. In fact, I first flew to San Antonio. I remember arriving in San Antonio with the $10 in my pocket. And he preached in San Antonio at Maranatha Bible Church. Maranatha bought a ticket for me to go to Portland, Oregon. And when I got to Portland, I loved it. I loved Mount Noma. And I thought God was calling me to go to seminary and prepare myself for something bigger He had for me, more than I was envisioning at that time. God wanted to start a ministry. God wanted me to mobilize more people than me and my family to help more children. I did not have the picture, but I was just following God. So I ended up in Portland. We arrived in Portland year 2000. In Portland, I went to school at Mount Noma University. My wife babysitted children in the neighborhood. She made some money. So we returned to Rwanda in one of our summers and used her babysitting money, this time to start a preschool with the 29 children. So the joy was getting bigger. The help was now growing. And God gave me an idea. And the idea was, you need to get more people on board to help children. So I took 29 pictures, returned to America with 29 pictures. In just 2 months, I had 29 children sponsored. And from then, we started a child sponsorship. Now it's 12,000 children. The preschool is a high school. And the ministry has grown into churches, has grown into theological education, has grown into a hospital of 60 beds, has grown into a women's ministry. God has done some amazing things in the process of healing this country.
I was able to see all of those things you listed: the preschool, the women's program, the hospital. I didn't step into the hospital, but I saw it. I visited your church. I visited some of your programs and schooling in different villages. And it is evident that God took those 9 children that he laid on your heart years and years ago, and then to the 29 children. And he has multiplied that over and over and over again because of the faithfulness of you and your family and your staff, and the faithfulness of so many people around the world that are invested in your ministry as well. And it was a joy for me to see that firsthand, and my son and I met a child that we sponsor. And so it was beautiful to see. I have a question for you, Pastor Charles, a little bit about, if you could speak just for a second on what you have seen your country do well as far as lamenting. And I think, I was speaking with some girlfriends just the other day about lamenting. And I think that lamenting is super hard for Christians, because the definition of lament is to express a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. And that's difficult because I actually don't want to sit in grief and I don't want to sit in sorrow, but sometimes it's necessary to do that lamenting. How have you seen your people and your country lament over what happened from the 50s through the 90s, and how has that helped y'all's healing?
Obviously, you can imagine when I started talking about the genocide and my coming here and the children, wow, I quickly nearly wanted to cry. In my culture, many are not supposed to cry. But I think we, every year here, from the month of April to the month of July, we remember what happened here in the genocide of the Tutsi people being killed in this country. And by the way, up to this day, we have some burials still going on. They still find here and there people who were killed and were never given a decent burial. But lamenting is something we do here. We lament the violence that happened here because it was really violent. You remember families being killed by machetes, not even a gunshot, but by machetes. People being hacked like animals. We remember that, and unfortunately, in our story, some of what happened here happened in the church. Some churches were involved in the genocide. Some Christians, because they were from a different tribe. Now, not everyone killed, but some people from the churches actually were not able to truly be Christians. They were, first of all, they are tribal and secondary Christian, or they are ethnicity instead of being Christians. It's like they were not disciples of Jesus, but they were in the church and got involved. To me, that is very painful when the church fails to provide justice. That's why even when I came to Rwanda, I felt I need to go live my faith instead of just shouting out my faith by loving people and acting compassionately. So lament also allows us as Christians to own the story of the genocide because it happened among us. Lamenting continues here. Every year we have a season of nearly 3 months, but every now and then you're going to find people lamenting and crying and remembering because it creates an ending remembrance, a remembrance which doesn't come to an end, not because we want to be in pain, but we want to remember in such a way that it never happens again, because we forget very quickly and things happen again. But also that whole process of remembering or lamenting and crying softens our hearts, and it turns into a revival. It turns into some kind of social renewal, in our lives, it has meaning to us. Lamenting helps us to connect with hope for the future, obviously, from our pain, from our tragedies, from our sufferings, so we can learn from the past and create a new future. Really, what happened here in Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide of the Tutsi people, is terribly brutal. I mean, 1 million people in a span of 100 days. This destroyed the entire fiber of our nation. I don't know how you can survive without crying to God. You know, scripture is full of people crying to God because of injustices. Psalms 142 says, I cried out to the Lord with my voice unto the Lord I did make my supplication. Like it's that supplication that brings healing. But then you go throughout the Psalms, you're going to find people lamenting. I look at the lamenting of Rachel wailing for her children, a bitter wailing, Rachel crying for her children. She refuses to be counseled for her children. She cannot see. I mean, they are family members we don't see. We may never see them again. And we remember them. You see their pictures. My auntie, as the husband was killed, I mean, her children were killed. In fact, her husband saved her because her husband was Hutu, she was Tutsi, and her husband hid her, but they killed all her children. And I see her up to this day with no children, but she was a mother. She's like a Rachel. She's lamenting for her in her life. So we lament here, and it's good. It's for our healing. I think crying is good, and it helps us to remember. It brings healing.
That's good.
Especially when you learn to cry to God. You know, the problem is when you keep on crying to people, people get tired of your cry.
Pastor
But
Charles,
God
that
doesn't.
is very
God
moving,
receives you every day, every time
to
you
hear.
come.
And like I said before, I'm speaking with
him.
Pastor Charles, who's the president and founder of Africa New Life. And I was very fortunate to see their organization and ministry this past January when I traveled to Rwanda. One of the things that stood out to me most was the healing that had been done as a country. And, you know, myself living in America right now, I listen to you and I talk about the lamenting and the healing and the ownership and crying out to God. And man, I just think this is what our country needs right now. America needs to lament and cry out for that healing ourselves. Pastor Charles, real quick before we go, I want to ask you a couple things. Two things. Number one, how are things going within Africa New Life in the midst of COVID-19? And number two, how can we, as supporters of you, how can we continue to pray for you and help you throughout this season?
You know, things kind of stable right now. First of all, I want to be very grateful to a number of our supporters, churches and individuals. As some of you may remember or may already know, because I've been talking to a number of people, we got locked down here in the middle of March. We were the first nation in the region to be locked down. Inside the country, you just could not move from one province to another province inside the country. And then all the borders were closed. The airport was closed. The country was very vigilant in terms of really protecting us, but the protection came with other consequences. because that killed the economy right away. It minimized the number of deaths and the number of people who got the coronavirus, but it created a ton of poverty and the broken jobs. For example, you came to Kigali. Yesterday, I was at the Marriott, it's still closed. I was at Serena, it's still closed. When you go downtown, restaurants are still closed. Building sites have just opened up. Now, most of the people here predominantly live on a bit of tourism, a little bit of construction industry, and they live on daily bread. I mean, people get paid every day or weekly. So if you don't have a job for a week, it just means you have no life, you have no food. And quickly, we did not have food to take care of our families. And we want to thank so much to many of our donors and sponsors who moved in very quickly and provided thousands and thousands of dollars in food, to the extent that up to this day, we are still rolling out food and we are distributing food around the country to our sponsored children, to even none of our sponsored children and families, because everyone was hungry. We've fed families of pastors across the city, and nearly 60 of them pastors whose churches have been closed and locked down, so they don't have a means of an income. We've never been to church, and pastors have never got an offering since March. Our own church, the first Sunday we closed, we lost 80% of the offering. It didn't come in. So how do you maintain a church and how do you maintain a system? So it's been hard, but we've been helped. Our friends have helped us. Thank you very much. Our children are not yet able to go to school, but we've created an education system for them. And the education system is more like the old-fashioned correspondence school. You remember before the internet was introduced and the online school, you do correspondence education. Now, because our children don't have internet in the villages, what we do, they come to the school and pick their curriculum, go study from home, and also take food with them, work out their assignments, bring back the assignments to school and get more food. So food is an incentive to keep them learning and to keep them bringing back their work for grading. Our staff has worked nearly all through the COVID season. What we did, because we could not cross from one province to another province, we had staff stationed in each center and province with the social workers and the nurse to reach out to the families in the community, and our drivers taking trucks of food. So we've created a system, we've been supported, we've been helped, and we are reaching out to the families and feeding them. They are completely astonished by God's provision again in this complicated season of our lives. And we thank you for your support, for your help, for your prayers. We know many of you are going through some hard times. I mean, some people have lost their families, some people are sick. But you know, something interesting? We've not had people drop their sponsored children. It is amazing. And on the top of that, we've not had families drop their children. They've stood with us. They have their pain and they are working with us here. And we truly want to thank God for you, and we pray for you for the great things God continues to do. We are continuing to serve with the two hands of the gospel. We are preaching the good news of our Lord Jesus Christ, and we are living out our faith in love and compassion to the communities we serve.
Kids as well. So we're all in the same boat here, trying to feed our kids and school them. I'm thankful for African New Life and how you have stepped up to help continue support the people in the villages that I was able to see that benefit so greatly from the work that you guys are doing. And so it's an honor to partner with you guys, and it's an honor to share your ministry and your story to my people who are listening and watching. Pastor Charles, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming on and joining me for a couple minutes today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me.
I will.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, come see us in Austin.
God bless you, and say hi to everybody, including your family and all my friends in Austin. I'm missing America. We are locked down here. I can't get on a plane. I'm missing all of you. It's a different time.
God bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Okay, guys. Do you know I just love Pastor Charles? I love him, and I love getting to hear from him and sit under his leadership when I was there in January. A couple things I want to tell you is if you feel led, you can support African New Life right now in their organization by a one-time gift or a sponsorship. My family is a sponsors family. We've sponsored a child there, and I'm a fan of child sponsorship programs, the ones that I believe in and trust, and this is one of them for me. I'm going to share this later, and there is a webpage. We can go check it out, but I just wanted to introduce you to my friend, Pastor Charles, today. Guys, thank you for hanging out. Hope you have a great Thursday. Bye, guys.